guys follow Mom Beauty on Instagram, make sure you open your phone and follow them. They're always showing great tips and tricks. She's always showing the best tips and tricks over here. And I've seen them actually bury the packaging in the backyard where they're planting. So it's not bad for the environment. Okay, I've got my loose powder on here and it feels like butter. So smooth, so sheer, so glowy, but it still has that setting property that's gonna set the makeup. A really good powder is gonna set your makeup, but it's also gonna smooth down texture. Really important. You want a high texture with your powder. The first place that I wanna set on my client is under the eyes. I'm gonna use the back of a clean brush first to press and roll under the eyes to remove any excess product, to make sure that concealer is really nice and smooth. And then I'm gonna gently press and roll my powder under her eyes. But before you apply powder, you have to work it in the brush. Because if you do not do that, you're gonna get a dry patch. Have you ever seen where you like go from powder to skin and you get like a little circle of dryness? Work it in the brush first, that's gonna make the biggest difference. When you're setting the under eyes, you don't want that dry patch, because what is that gonna do to the texture under the eye? It's gonna show more, right? I'm not a believer in using powders to bake. It really is a technique for stage and theater, and maybe sometimes red carpet, but I don't love that method because it tends to look dry on the skin. So as I'm rolling this powder, you see how I move the brush? I press and roll without a lot of pressure. When you use too much pressure around the eye, and if you're swiping and stretching like this, you're removing the makeup and you're also creating crepiness in the skin because you're stretching the skin taut, and when you let go, it's got to wrinkle back up, right? So by pressing and rolling gently, you're not going to get that crepey texture. We've set the under eye, we've reduced the shine, and it's also minimized the appearance of texture. Next, I'm going to use a bigger fluffy brush. The bigness set right here at the marionette lines, which she doesn't have because she's youthful and glowy. But that is something that I worry about for my clients. I don't want any texture to fall into the lines. So I set there first, press and roll the powder into place. Once I press and roll the powder over everywhere, I'm going to dust off the excess product. That's going to ensure. I love to see work. I love to mentor people. I do it all the time, usually through social media because my students are all over the world. I actually have a student here in the back. I teach at Christine Valmy. I work as an esthetician. So skin is my thing. I love skin. It's something that I've grown to love because over the years I used to just paint everybody solid with foundation like a garage door. And I've learned to strip back and really focus and hone in on the beauty of the skin. It's one of our most important organs. It protects everything from the elements and from pollution. So we need to take care of it. And why not use clean, healthy beauty products like the ones from Mog, right? Yes, question. You have the microphone? I'm 42, my hearing and my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. Hold it really close and talk loud.
All right, thank you. Just wanted to understand, why did you use the brush again under her, like why did you roll the end of the brush?
Smart, okay, I'll revisit that because this is one of my favorite tips and it's one of the questions I get from clients and pros all the time. How do I prevent the under eye from creasing? How many of you experience your under eye creasing throughout the day, right? Chances are it's creasing because there's too much oils, too much skincare, and too much product. So rolling the brush gently under the eye like this is going to remove the excess product onto the brush, and then I can wipe it off on a tissue. And it's also pushing the product into place gently and smoothing it out before you set with powder. Because if something's already creasing and you set it with powder, that crease is permanent. It's never going to go away. So you have to make sure that you smooth out all the creases first. Like when you do eyeshadow, after you do your primer, before you apply eyeshadow, you want to press through the primer or the foundation in our case today, and then set it with powder. Because if there's already a little crease in there, and you set it, it's never going to go away. That crease is permanent. You're going to see it on camera. How many of you work on editorials, camera, you've seen your makeup close up and you spot that crease and you're like trying to buff it out and it won't buff because we've already made it set with powder, right? So one of the things I love about this powder is I can set to forget. It's going to be long wearing, so I say set to forget, but it also helps to refinish, to diminish the appearance of pores and texture. So I set to forget and refinish to diminish with one powder instead of having to go into multiple powders. Yes, another question. I love all the questions. She's the only one with questions. Where is everybody? Are you awake today with questions? You know everything? I don't know everything. I learn all the time. Okay, one more and then we'll come to you.
Thank you. So on the topic of eyeshadow,
Yes.
do you use your primer and then set it with a setting powder, then put on your eyeshadow, or do you just go ahead with your eyeshadow?
That's a good question. If the primer is really sticky and you go on with eyeshadow, it's gonna make a dark spot. So oftentimes I will set with a little bit of powder. And the good thing about this powder is that it's very emollient. It's gonna move the product. It creates the best and most seamless blends. I've done this where I've done primer in the past and then I find that it just sticks to the primer so hard that nothing works after that. So it's really important to do that. Yes, your question.
When you rolled under her eyes, is that a brush you rolled with?
Yeah, it was the back of a brush. Yeah, it was an Omnia brush.
The back of the brush.
The back of the brush. So this is an eyeshadow brush from Omnia and I just used the very back. I love the Omnia brushes in specific because of the shape of the back of the handle. It's beautiful to hug just right under the eye. You get close to the lashes with it. So now that we've set the makeup with powder, it's time to enhance. Really take our makeup to the next level by using powder shades, powder colors. So I'm going into their matte bronzer. It's got like a little glow to it, but it's a powder bronzer. When you work with powders, do you remember what I said before with powder? You have to work it in the tool before you apply it. Same thing with any color product. Work it in the brush first, because if you work it in the brush, you're gonna get an airbrush quality finish to the makeup versus a dark spot. So I'm gonna start right at the back of the ear where I had my point of intensity for the cream where I wanted it the strongest. Start there and bring it forward, retracing my steps. From here forward, not past the eye, bringing it upward in a circular motion. And then here's where I have the darkest spot, and then I bring it forward over the jawline, down into the neck. And guess what? This is a step someone always forgets. You also have to bring it up a little bit. Because if you just go like this and down, it's gonna look like a beard or like a hard line. You know, like the old makeup from the 80s where they had the hard lines everywhere? That's what it looks like. We're not in that era anymore. We're bringing that into the future by smoothing things down and creating softer blends. Work the product into the brush, then start wherever you want it the strongest, because you're going straight from product to skin. Wherever you first place your brush, it's going to be the darkest. As I sweep the brush forward, I lighten my pressure. So it goes from dark to light, creating a beautiful gradient. Whatever's left of my brush, I just do a quick sweep to marry it all together. We have another question in the back corner. Turn this way. So one thing to note, coating. Amino acid coating on pigment presents truer color. Things do not oxidize. The foundation isn't going to change color. The eyeshadows aren't going to get darker. They're true. In addition to that, it helps with applying things smoother. Have you ever had an eyeshadow, you go to apply it and it just kind of skips? It doesn't give you a smooth blend? You don't have to worry about that here. So I'm starting in the corner and just sweeping it down over the jawline, down into the neck, and then just one little brush up here. Just smooth it down. What's your question?
Would you do anything different for a more mature skin?
A more mature skin. I would probably focus more on the skin prep, but I would do exactly the same steps because everything that we have used is infused with hydrating ingredients, which is really important for mature skin. I'm living with my mature skin at this day. I know I don't look it, but it's because I've had a lot of Botox and a lot of skincare and a lot of chemical peels. You know, so if I don't take care of my skin and I go to apply products, I get flaking, I get texture, I get dryness, things don't stick properly. So it's really about the skin prep process. If you're an esthetician, one of the best things you can do is build a package for your client. When you build a package for your client, they're coming to you for a facial leading up to their big event, like a wedding. So now when I work with the bride, I build out a 3-month package. She gets 3 facials, a dermaplane, a trial makeup, and the day of the wedding. And then you price it however you need to. But she's coming to me for the facials, which is nice because I don't have to travel to her. When she's here for her last facial, that's when we're doing our trial makeup or even the first one. So it's all kind of easy. And then the day of the wedding, I show up at where she is. Usually about a week before the wedding is when I do the dermaplane because the makeup's gonna go really smooth. I would say 3 days is the closest you wanna go because if there's a reaction, you wanna have time to react to it, right? Okay, blush. We did the cream blush underneath, which you do see peeking through, but I want to take it a step further. This color is a soft pinky color. I'm using the same brush that I used for sculpting and powder. I love to use the same brush for a lot of things because I feel like all these colors, all these ingredients work well together. Now that I work it into the bristle, who remembers the placement for the blush? How many fingers from the nose? 2. How many fingers from the eye? 1. That's your point of intensity. So I'll start right here and do a little swirl. Look how I push back with my hand when I'm applying the product. Because the blushes are very pigmented, I'm pushing back to create resistance, so I'm creating a softer application. This is almost like draping. So I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side, turn towards me. I push and create resistance so that I'm not putting too much product on, and I'm holding the brush further back. How many of you hold your brush right up here when you apply products? Anybody? Good. What happens when you hold it that close? Anybody? Too much color, too much pigment, too much pressure. So by creating resistance, I'm not leaving fingerprints on her skin, I'm not touching her skin, and I'm building color slowly, which is really the key to a beautifully blended airbrush look. Whatever is left over on my brush, I hit the temples, maybe a little bit across the bridge of the nose, the chin, because we have life to our skin. If you paint somebody with full cover, they look dead because there's no blush coming through. Cheek is a really good step. We have 10 minutes left. It's just enough to play with eyes. How many of you love eyeshadow? It's like the best thing that you do, your favorite thing to do. Yeah, I was that person for many years. When I started doing makeup, all my clients would leave looking like drag queens. And I was like, how many eyeshadows can I put on her today? 15, let's do it. And now, over the years, I've learned that that doesn't make money. It's great for like an editorial or something crazy, but no one's gonna invest in those 15 eyeshadows. So find the shadow colors that work best for your kit, for your clients. Today, she helped me put together her color palette, which is so beautiful. I have all of these shades in creams and in powders. So the cream clay product is perfect, almost like for a brow pomade, you can put it through the brow, for the eyeshadow. Some of these shades are cool tones for sculpting. It doubles up as a face sculpt. So in my kit, every product I use has like 3 to 4 functions. That way if I'm out of something, I miss something, I have another option that I can mix and create with. I can mix this into the foundation to custom blend a sculpt. There's a black that can be used as like a smoky eyeshadow base, a really tight smoky liner. And then on the other side, I have all the powder versions. So this is her color palette, but it's also a universal palette that I can use for bridal, editorial, fashion. These are the money makers in my kit. The hot pink, the green, the lime acid green, those don't make money for me. These will. So this is where I invest. As we did with the skin, we're gonna start with the creams first. One of the good things about the powder product from Mom Beauty is that I can layer up creams on top of it because of the high hyaluronic acid, because of the creamy ingredients, the avocado oil. Most of the time, once you lay down a powder, it's over. You can't go back in with creams and liquids, right? Because it gets cakey. The good thing about this is all these are a beautiful marriage between the ingredients of all the products. So I'm gonna take a little warm brown. I choose a brown that's a little bit warmer for her because I want to play up her eyes and her eye color. I cut, just so you know, I cut all my, I'm trying to be cautious and conscious for the planet and not use so much paper towel. So I take a paper towel and cut it into little squares because I go through a lot. And I hate having to use an entire piece every time I work. I'm going to take a little bit of the warm brown and let's take a little bit of a darker brown too. And I'm going to mix a dot of black into my darker brown. So the black shade is really nice. It's a warm black, it's not going to turn too cool on you, which is nice, because sometimes you use a black and all of a sudden you're looking at it and it looks navy blue. I like it when it's a bit warmer. Okay? I'm going to use a fluffy brush to apply this product. Most people think they need a flat, firm brush to apply creams. I'm of the opposite mindset. The fluffier the brush, the more soft and diffused the look is going to be. And just like we did with powders, what do you do with your product and your tool before you apply? You work it in the tool. So I dip in the cream and I work it in the brush really good. I feel like Bob Ross making happy eyeshadow, working the product in the tool so that we get a nice blend. Close your eyes. I'm gonna start right at the lash line and deposit my color. And because it's a fluffy brush, I'm always gonna get a super soft blended look. Work it up towards the crease. And with light pressure, it's gonna fade and blend right into the setting powder and right up towards the brow bone. I don't wanna go all the way up. I just want to go up towards the crease and then soften it from the crease towards the brow bone so that it fades from the brown to skin tone. The cream clay eyeshadow uses hectorite and a few other ingredients to make it longer wearing. And when you set it with powder, who remembers what I said earlier? When you set a cream with powder, it becomes longer wearing. And most often it'll also become water resistant, which I love. Water resistant makeup, thinking of the bride in particular or the mother of the bride. Whoever's crying the big day, right? We have to be conscious of that and be prepared to deal with that. And through the layering process, we get longer wearing makeup. which was today's session, Larry. So, how many of you have learned something useful today from today's class? Anybody? Nobody? Everybody? Good. How many of you learned something unique and new about Mom Beauty that you didn't know before? Okay, so the booth is about 2 or 3 rows over in the corner. Come by and see us. I'm gonna go over there afterwards and spend a little time with the team to help answer questions, help choose colors. Everyone in here has Instagram, right? So open up your Instagram, follow Mob Beauty, M-O-B, and follow Nick Lujan Artistry. If you snapped any photos, please tag me. I never get any photos of my work because I'm always on stage. I love to repost all the action shots, and if you tag Mob Beauty and Nick, we'll probably repost. We want to showcase the makeup show and ensure that the makeup show has longevity too, because this is a very unique place for artists, and it's very unlike any other trade show on the planet. Some of you have gone to like IBS or ABS, all of those things. They're great, but this caters specifically to the makeup artists. Everything you find here, all the people working the booths, all the brands are makeup artists. Founded, created by, created with. So that makes a difference when you're investing in product. Okay, let's do the darker brown now. This one's kind of like a grayy brown because I mixed in a little dot of the black. I'm gonna take this to the outer corner of the eye and work my way in. I'm doing almost, what do you call this? Like a half cut crease, but a diffused one. I don't want the hard lines. She's not going on TikTok right now. She's not going on a red carpet. I want her to look presentable for the day because she's going to see you at the booth in a little bit over there. So the creams, they have such a good play time. You can blend and blend to your heart's content and build color slowly, which for me is really important. Building color slowly versus putting it on really heavy and trying to blend it out will give you a more airbrushed look. How many of you have done like an eyeshadow and you put a big dot of dark in the corner and then you try to blend it out, but that dot always kind of stays there? And it shows up on camera, it shows up in photos. So again, work the product in the bristles, build your color slowly. And how many of you have ever worked in uneven lighting before? A hotel room, right? So for me, this is super uneven. All my light sources are coming from over there, all of them. Not one light source coming from here. So I use muscle memory. Whatever I do on one side, I immediately do on the other. So that I have that muscle memory and know that I'm gonna be balanced when she steps away from this lighting situation. That's one of the tips that I like to give because people don't know how to navigate that. If you forget your makeup light, if you don't have a good light with you, you have to know muscle memory. And when you're working for symmetry and balance, you do one side, step 1, the next side, step 1, step 2, step 2. You don't just do one perfect eye and try to recreate it on the other side. It'll never happen. You'll always have an issue. Back in the day, that's what some artists would do. I'd be like, why? It's really hard. You got the perfect eyeliner on one side and the other side is not gonna match, honey. Don't. Work in sections, step by step, and go from there. So the next thing I want to do is take just a touch of setting powder, just a little bit, to set down this creamy eyeshadow that we just placed. I'm going to use a fluffy brush, work it in my brush, just like we've done before. Close your eyes, and just gently dab it onto place without a lot of pressure. The more pressure you add, the more you're going to start creating crepiness or wrinkles in the skin. We don't want pressure. Very light pressure. I'm going to do the other side real quick. Just gently pressing it in. Setting that eyeshadow base, that cream color. And if you want it to be dewy, you can leave it dewy, but I want to go in with powders on top of it. Question. She's going to grab me the microphone.
Hi, Nick. Thank you
Hi.
for this demonstration. So what I've noticed is you only use 3 brushes so far. Is that typical of your artistry? Or is that just for the
Yes, that's typical for me because I hate washing brushes. And there's really something to using the same brush that I used for the foundation, for the contour, for the blush, because all those colors start to kind of mix together a little bit and marry, and I feel like I get a nice seamless blend between things. So I do understand the other mindset where you want a separate brush for everything. That way, if you have to do touch-ups, you can do that. But I've just over the years have kind of honed it in and made it very easy for myself. And then at the end of the day, I throw all my brushes for her in one Ziploc bag, write her name on it. That way, if I have to do a touch-up, I have her bag ready to go. And I have a different set of brushes for each client that I'm doing that day. I never use the same brushes twice on one day for a wedding, an event. It's too much work to clean in between. They never dry. When you have makeup brush cleaner in the brush and you go to apply something, you mess up your makeup. It puts a hole in the makeup, it doesn't feel good on the skin. Then you start sweating and then your makeup takes too long. So So a different set of brushes for each client. Even when I do fashion shows, I'll be doing 13 models. I have 13 sets of brushes. And I'm only using 2 or 3 brushes on each model. Because then at the end of the day, how many brushes do I have to wash? And I don't usually have an assistant at home to wash my brushes, and my poodle won't do it. She refuses. Okay, let's go in with some powder eyeshadow and really emphasize the eyes. So the powder shadows, powders today I'm using mostly mattes, but they have variations on texture. And a good makeup is going to have a balance of texture. How many of you seen an eyeshadow where it's just shimmer from here all the way up with no matte in the crease? You lose the dimension.